So if you've tried to buy an Xbox 360 game lately, you've probably noticed one thing. Some games are just completely gone from the internet. You cannot get them anywhere. It's like a dry desert out there. Welcome back to another video, guys. Today is a bit of a follow-up to my previous Xbox 360 video where we talked about prices skyrocketing for 360. And now we're going to talk a bit about the fallout what happens when games are just completely unavailable to buy. How long are you going to have to wait before the market starts to get saturated again? What games have absolutely no chance of ever being the previous cheaper prices that they once were? And what games will remain cheap and you don't have to really worry about? Or what games also will come down in price if you wait long enough, and how long will that be? And also stay tuned until the end of the video. I picked up one game here after I made my last video where this game was so hard to find. I actually had to order this from Amazon. No pictures, no nothing. We're going to open this up in the video and find out what the condition of it is. Did it pay off, and what game that is specifically. So be sure to stay tuned for that. But let's talk about this a bit. 360 right now, after I made my last video, I'm like, okay, I probably should have done this before I made that video, but I think the damage had already been done because based on what I had been seeing on price history and sales on eBay, a lot of these games have actually been hard to find for about a month now. So what happens when you go to search for a game on eBay? Well, let me show you. This is probably what you're going to see. So if you search for a game like Fatal Inertia, I'm like, oh, I don't have a copy of Fatal Inertia. Let's go pick it up. It's a pretty uncommon, if not borderline rare, futuristic, like Wipeout style racing game on the 360. I come on the eBay and, 35 results, okay. But then you start to scroll and you start to scroll, and keep in mind when it has this rating right here, that is the Japanese copy. And as you can see, there are no English copies whatsoever for this game. Everything is sold out. If you go onto Mercari, sold out. If you go onto Amazon, everything but like super duper overpriced copies are most likely sold out. So this is an example of something that I tried to pick up that is just completely gone. Now, in the case of Fatal Inertia, like I said, this game is not super common, and unfortunately, it's going to suffer the sort of side effect that this game is probably never going to return to the prices it used to go for, which were about 20, maybe 25, $30. As you can see, the prices, I was actually looking at this one yesterday. It was still for sale. I'm like, $50, man, I just can't do it. I think I'd rather take the risk and wait and see, just in case this game maybe comes back down in price. But you can even see the frequency at which this game sells, and it's not often. A lot of people are even buying copies from Australia, for crying out loud. A lot of copies that remain for sale on eBay for these games too are sometimes often from Canada because people in the US don't want to pay the increased shipping prices, but that's one example. But let me show you an example of something even a bit more extreme. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, why this is even worse than we may be imagining compared to the PS3 in terms of availability and prices. So here's one. This is a game that you most likely have not even heard of before, because this is an actual rare Xbox 360 game. It's a game called Autobahn Police. Police? Oh god, I butchered it. The only copy that's available on sale right now is $100 for just the disc, and if you come down in here to check sold, people are buying disc only for 30. This person here bought you can see what they did here. Somebody bought the case and the manual, or just the case for $30 and the disc for 30. I guess they're going to try and get a manual at some point. But you can see $70, $77 with bidding, by the way, which is very telling about a game's current market price. This is an actual rare game. This is a game that I've known about for quite some time. Should have picked it up sooner. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I waited a little too long. You can see here back in February, this game was going for $15 bidding. This just shows you the drastic increase in desirability as people start to scoop up Xbox 360 games. So I'm showing you this game because this is an example of something that I truly believe will never come back down in price. People are starting to really deeply delve into the library of Xbox 360 games, and any game that is actually rare is probably never going to come back down to being as you saw here, a $16, $15, $20 game with bidding. That's never going to happen again. So a game like this is going to suffer the fallout of forever now being recognized as one of the rare 360 games. We've kind of crossed over into that period now where people are starting to really collect for 360, and games like this are going to be sort of a hot focus for collectors and also people that want to play these games. I'm sure this is actually a pretty decent sort of Need for Speed type of game. I haven't played it yet though. So let me show you something before we get into chatting here for a bit. This is an example of the polar opposite. A game, Project Gotham Racing 4, is the polar opposite of something like Autobahn Police, because look at this, 679 available on eBay. Now, this is something that you will never, ever, ever have to worry about the price increasing on, because copies are just so plentiful. It's never going to run out. You have absolutely nothing to worry about with a game like this. So it's really those games, if you're getting into it a little bit late, like admittedly, like myself, I should have been buying 360 games. You know, the ones I'm pretty happy with my 360 collection, but I should have been buying 360 games a little bit earlier than I have. But whatever, it is what it is, right? So why is it that we're seeing certain games just really completely run out on the internet compared to others? Well, for one, I think the 360 is very closely comparable to the Dreamcast. I think 360 has a really sort of cult uh, fan base that just absolutely love a lot of the games in the library. The genre selection is amazing. There's something for everybody. There really is. RPGs, racing games, platformers, action games. There's just so much. And if you look and compare to something like the PlayStation 3, which, don't get me wrong, has a great library, a great selection of games, I do think comparatively versus the PS3, the 360 outnumbers it in terms of desirable games to pretty much anybody in terms of genres, especially when it comes to exclusive games or games that are, we should define this here, games that are on the PC but only received, say, a console port. Usually the 360 is the one that received that port. So while there aren't too many 360 games that have that little stamp up there that says only available on 360. When it comes down to a game being available on a home console, the 360 actually has way more exclusives than you might realize. And it's because that the PS3 has, in my opinion, fewer desirable games. When the PlayStation apocalypse, as I like to call it, happened, where everybody was panicking and buying games, the amount of actually rare and desirable games is quite low on the PS3, so a lot of people honed in on those games that weren't actually all that rare to begin with. Let's be real here, a game like Puppeteer, 3D Dot Game Heroes, they're not actually that rare. They're kind of uncommon. You can now see prices on those have come back down to earth. They've come down, they've kind of calmed down. But that's because I just don't think there's enough uh, for people to kind of like constantly be spending on PS3, because you just pick up the handful of games that you want and you're kind of done with it, right? And then the market will kind of saturate itself again over time, because these games are just not rare enough to sustain those prices. Whereas the 360, this is something that's going to keep collectors busy for a long time. So there's ups and downs to this. The positives are that there's a ton of games that people can spread out their spending on. It's not like you're going to see just a dozen games that just get ridiculously pricey, right, and never come back down. In a way, having a huge library on 360 is a good thing, because it means that games that otherwise would probably be way more expensive than they are at the moment are cheaper, because people are so busy spending money on so many other games in the 360 library. I also think the backwards compatibility really helps in the 360's instance, because Microsoft has this dedication to, apparently even in the next generation, still continuing on with being backwards compatible. We don't know the specifics of that yet. We don't know if that means 360 games or just Xbox One or Series X. But we do know that if you at least own a Series X, there's a really good reason to pick up physical copies of 360 games. And speaking of picking up physical copies, I think another thing that, compared to the PS3, that the 360 has going for it right now is, and this is a whole nother video that I want to talk about, but I will just bullet point to here. I think people are reaching a moment of sort of burnout when it comes to modern games. People are sick and tired of their games coming out with day one patches, day one DLC, day one season passes. Like, it's just getting ridiculous. People are not looking to spend $70 for a game that incentivizes you to buy it digitally so you can get early access or bonus content that should be in the game, from the beginning, especially in a physical version. Games like Star Wars Outlaws just announced that they're going to have a $130 digital pre-order version with extra content, a day one season pass content that is you have to pay extra for, on top of the, you would have to spend $70 for the base game, but then you'd have to spend like $90 or something to get the season pass version to get more content. I mean, it's just getting crazy, right? People are getting tired of this stuff. And the fact that the 360 and the PS3 were sort of that last generation where we didn't even think about these kind of things, because not only did they not really exist, but they couldn't really exist on the scale and level that they are today in the industry. People are really just kind of like, man, why would I spend $70 on a game that will, first of all, be $20 probably in just a handful of months, but also is like doing terrible business practices with how they handle content, why not spend $70 on like a few or even just one really good sought after Xbox 360 game? And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of focus right now. The everything, it's sort of like the eclipse, right? Like things are just lining up. The sun and the moon are coming together in this exact moment for the 360, where you have people that are just tired of modern gaming coming back to retro, and we will call 360 retro. I mean, the thing's almost 20 years old at this point. Um, so you've got people that are nostalgic for the 360, people that are panicking a bit, getting excited about the 360 because the live store is closing. And, it's just things are coming together at the right or wrong time, if you want to look at it that way too. Like, because of these things kind of happening at the same time, prices are a bit more crazy than they probably should be. But let's get back here and show you a few more examples that I wanted to kind of just touch upon. So Tenchu Z is another game where I tried to pick up a copy of this, and I will be doing a video probably in the next week or two where I'll show you guys some of the 360 games that I picked up, and how I acquired them. Like, some of them I just barely got before the prices started getting where they are. Tenchu Z is one that I tried to secure, and luckily I was able to actually get a copy of this. But you kind of get your hopes up, right? You're like, oh, okay, here's a copy for $35. This game never used to be $35. This was about a $10, $15 game, but it is a 360 exclusive. But you start scrolling down, and yeah, whoever gets this copy, congratulations, because that's pretty much like the last copy on eBay that isn't potentially going to go higher because it's on bidding or coming from Canada. Okay, there's two for 35. Which by the way, if you do want to support my content, my channel, I will have a link in the description of this video it's an eBay affiliate link. So if any of you do actually come on to search eBay for 360 games, I will maybe earn a commission from what you buy with that link. So just, if you want to support, that's a good way of doing it, and I do appreciate it. But yeah, just to show you here, it's completely cleaned out. Everything is gone. The only copies that are left are disc only, copies that are not the North American versions, copies that are coming from Canada with crazy shipping that even people in Canada are not willing to pay probably. So here's another one. Naughty Bear is a great example where the normal edition is quite available, but people don't want the normal version, right? Because the gold edition has DLC, and pretty soon the DLC will not be available anymore, and getting it on the disc is a really big temptation. This copy here is like super scratched up and doesn't work, unfortunately, and there are no other copies available on the internet. And it's not just eBay, we're talking Mercari, and even in some instances Amazon are just out of everything. As you can see, no gold editions left for Naughty Bear. Now let me show you a really interesting contrast here. If you search for 99 Nights 2, which is the sequel, there are very few copies left of 99 Nights 2 on eBay because it is a lot more uncommon than the first game. The first game is actually one of the more common games on Xbox 360. And because of that, you could see, if we scroll just a little bit, it's almost all copies of the first 99 Nights game, despite it being a search for 99 Nights 2. So this is the kind of example I wanted to show where something like 99 Nights, even if the price starts getting up there a little bit, like into the $20, $25, even $30 range for the first game, don't buy that one right now. You want to wait. Any game where you go on eBay and at any given moment there's at least 100 of them available, that's the kind of stuff you're going to want to wait. And we might as well kind of talk about how long are you actually going to have to wait for these 360 games to start coming down in price. And in my opinion, it's going to be a while. So obviously in July, the 360 marketplace is shutting down. So prices and availability on this stuff is only going to get worse as we get closer to that point, right? And I'm sure for the next month or two after that, people are still going to be scrambling to pick up what they want. And then by then, we're already almost approaching the holidays. People are spending more money. They're doing more shopping for themselves, for others, what have you. We just know that around September, October, November, December, maybe August and September is like your best shot to try and get some of this stuff maybe at a decent price. But really, not until next year, not until 2025, do I really think we're going to start seeing the prices of these games. The games that can stabilize, the ones that are more in the common to uncommon side, I think you got a little bit to wait. So unfortunately, if you didn't have a chance to pick up some of these games and you don't want to pay these inflated prices, I think unfortunately, it's a little too late at this point. So games that are getting inflated, you're going to have to wait. All right, so let's get back into some more examples here. Bomberman Act Zero is a 360 exclusive, but it's a good exclusive, or a good example of an exclusive, rather, even though I do actually kind of not mind Bomberman Act Zero. I think it's actually decently fun. This is a good example of a game that, even in this moment of crisis, nobody cares. the game is still $9, right? Like there's tons of copies on here. This is something you don't have to worry about. The only thing that can really do something to this game is if somebody, like a few people are just like they buy up the market. But even then, this game is common. It's not like a few people buying out the internet on copies of this game is really going to do anything. It may affect the prices for a little bit, but there's so many copies of Bomberman out there that the price would certainly stabilize over time. You know, it may take a year or so, but yeah, this game I think is pretty immune. And let me just show you guys one more example before we get to opening up uh, this game here. Project Sylphid is a game that I remember I played this long ago, kind of when it first came out. I was very disappointed by it, but it is one of those games where if you looked at the cover, it's from Square Enix. It looks super sci-fi, almost like an RPG. It's a space game, third-person or first-person space game that, oh man, I just wasn't super into it. It wasn't really my thing. But as you can see, this is a game where you may actually see a price increase on this. It's under 100 available at any given time, and that's not including obviously different regions. So let's just say the North American copy is kind of sitting around anywhere, give or take 50, 60 copies on eBay at any given moment. So even if this did go up in price, I think this is an example of one of those games where if you wait long enough, it will come back down to being, I mean, look at this copy, complete in box, even from Canada, $8, buy it now, $10 shipping. You know, it's about a $15 game. So if you see something like this start going up to 20, 25, 30, don't panic buy something like Project Sylphid. Just wait. It will come back down. Ridge Racer 6 was another great example of that. When Ridge Racer 6 was added to the backwards compatibility program, people bought that game up like crazy. The price went from being a $10 game to a nearly $60, $70 game. And if you search that game now, it is way back down to pretty much like the prices that it used to be in that sort of $15 range. So, um, what do you say? We open up this game that I could not find on eBay or Mercari, and I had to resort to getting a copy on Amazon. So we're going to open this here, no editing. Oh god, hopefully I'm actually able to, okay, there we go. Luckily these Amazon bags are not too hard to open. And I'm going to show you an example of what's going on eBay with this game. Wow, they actually put it in bubble wrap. That's the first time that's happened for me. Protected my retro games, I like it. It's got a little thank you card for your support, and it's even shrink wrapped. Wow. Okay. So the game that I picked up was Infernal Hell's Vengeance. So this is a game that I'm like, oh, you know, let's just take a look at the exclusives out there. And this is one that I hadn't picked up yet. Any kind of like third-person action game. I love that style of action game from the 360 era. We really don't get too many action games like this anymore. So I'm like, okay, let's go check it out. Let's go pick up a copy. Looks like it's in really nice shape too. And I took a chance on this. This was pretty much, I think it was like $20. The description just said it's complete in box, manual, original case. That's it. Disc is mint looking. That's really good. Not sure if they resurfaced it. Doesn't look like it. Manual is mint. Wow, this is. I didn't expect a game that I bought on Amazon to be one of the most mint condition used copies I've ever bought. Even it practically looks brand new. But let me show you guys real quick why I had to resort to buying this on Amazon. If you go on the eBay right now, you do have to filter out like Diablo, PAL, Japan, because there's a lot of results for non-North American copies. And they'll show you a bunch of copies of Diablo if you try searching for this. Currently, the only copy is really this over $20 copy with shipping for one without a manual, one here from Canada. And then after that, that's it. The game is done. Like, the only copies are PAL copies. It's sold out. It's completely sold out on eBay. If you go on Mercari, it's the same thing. There are none available on Mercari. I had to go on Amazon and I found the last decently priced copy. You can see here people April 10th, April 9th. $30, $30. So what happens to a game like this? One of the exclusives that, in my opinion, isn't super common. I'd say this is more on the uncommon side. This is not a game that you see all the time. A lot of you have probably never even heard of this game. I do think this is a game that will suffer the sort of unfortunate circumstance of it is uncommon enough where the availability drying up like this will cause people to start listing this game higher prices than normal. The last selling copies were in the $30 range. You're going to start seeing people sell this for $40, $45, maybe even $50 for people out there that are trying to take advantage of this situation. And the thing is, people will buy those copies at inflated prices because I've seen it happen with other 360 games. And something like this that is more on the uncommon side, this will permanently increase the price of this game. It's not the case of a Project Sylphid where even if that game were to sell out, something like that I do think would come down in price again. It's something like this that you really got to keep an eye out for. And it's just the unfortunate side effect of, well, a digital storefront closing, right? It gives us more reason to make sure that we're buying physical copies of our games. So experiencing this with 360 again after experiencing this with the PS3 really makes me want to start collecting a bit more for the PS4. Future proof myself a bit with when it comes to games available physically that maybe are still decently affordable. And I do want to do a video as well on the Xbox One, kind of talk about what's going on with the Xbox One market and what I think is going to happen to that. Is it going to be anything like the 360? Well, not really, no, but we'll talk about that in the future videos. So if you guys enjoyed this type of video and commentary and you want to see something like this on the Xbox One and my opinions on what's going to happen with that, be sure to subscribe, leave a like. It does help out the channel a lot. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.